You know, I'm guilty. I should have reviewed this thing a very long time ago. I mean, it's the highest rated mid-size or compact sedan of last year, I think it was. And that's the main reason I didn't review it, because it was already reviewed to death and praised. But it's a little later, and I had some time to see how this thing really performs over time. You know, everybody was blown away by that initial impression and the initial look of it. And I can see why, because this car class was boring and dead and cheap, and then Hyundai came and shook things up with a nice looking car that was unique. And they have kind of changed some things. Like when it first came out, that climate control, it actually looked better than it does now. Now they made it more plain in the 2015 version. You know, maybe they thought it was too confusing to use. Look at this person. Go, lady. What are you doing? It's a yield sign. Anyway, back to the review. Everything else is pretty much the same though. That's about the only thing they changed since the initial release. So looking around the cabin, you can see it's not bad looking, pretty modern. The Hyundai angles are in full effect. You're not gonna find premium materials, but it's a plastic lining the cabin, but it's not the worst. Soft touch materials are nowhere to be found except like right here. That's soft. The sun is hating on my review right now. On the wheel, you got basic controls. Nothing special, no phone controls or anything like that. In this trim, at least, this is the base trim. But you got your center wheel gap at the bottom. The name I just made up for is center wheel gap. Sound like I know what I'm talking about, huh? Anyway, if y'all know anything about me or watch my reviews, I just like steering wheels to have this at the bottom because that's how I prefer to hold the wheel. Personal preference. This is what your panel looks like up front with the speedometer and RPM reader. And you have a digital trip reader up front that shows you how much fuel you have left before you run out, and what your current fuel economy is, and your mileage. You can see the eco mode is activated. You have that eco mode, eco boost, whatever. I call it eco boost, even though people correct me on that all the time. That's just what I call it. A nicely laid out radio, not too hard to figure out. iPod connections, MP3 connections, and a phone charger. Any automaker who leaves that out at this point is robbing you. You gotta have that. And why did this dude just stop right here? He trying to make me smash into him. The light is green. What is he doing? Dang. Dude's driving a Mustang and he don't know what he's doing. Okay, so y'all got a couple tastes of some typical Louisiana drivers. Back to the subject at hand. You got the basic features. Power windows, power locks. On the driver's side, of course. Power windows, power locks for the passenger in the front. And everything else is pretty much a basic setup. Minimum features, I mean, like I said, this is the base trim, but you won't get too much more even in the premium trim. You might get a rear view camera and a built-in GPS. CD player, clock that reads temperature. That's about it. So, let me give y'all the patented backseat shot. So back here, this is what set the world in a frenzy last year. The nice leg room that Hyundai packed in, and the super high ceiling for the passengers, so even tall people can ride comfortably. And that's still true. But that's about all there is back here. No features. Just nice leg room for a car this size. And a very high ceiling, so taller people can ride without bumping their head against the roof. So here's the center console shot from the back. This was, you know, a big deal when it first came out. It was a nice looking car with room that wasn't usually in this class, and this segment was pretty much stagnant until Hyundai shook it up. Hyundai, who expected it? Nobody. Okay, now that we got all those pleasantries out of the way, it's time to get to the nitty gritty with the 2015 Hyundai Elantra. If this was a couple years ago, I would score it much higher than what I'm about to score it, but times have changed. Competitors have gotten more up to date with their vehicles and made the competition much stiffer. They've added more features and pretty much matched the size that the Elantra came when they blew away the segment a couple years ago. So, taking that into consideration, I can only give the 2015 Hyundai Elantra base model a 3.5 out of 5. If you get you a more premium trim, you can go down and bump that up to maybe a 3.8. I mean, back when this car first hit, the competition was slim to none. You only had the Chevy Cobalt, which was trash. The Ford Focus, which is, you know, the Ford Focus. It was pretty bland back then, too. And the Corolla, which was reliable but bland. I think the best car would probably be the Nissan Sentra at that time that competed with this Hyundai Elantra. But now, times have really changed because the Sentra is like the worst in this class because it's so bland. And it doesn't offer the space that the Elantra offers. The Corolla is a little more hip, only slightly, not too much. They're not rocking the boat too much. The Focus, you know what? Actually, let me change that. The Focus is the worst because they're just not reliable. Don't believe the hype. They got a lot of tech in the Focus, but it's just not reliable. The Sentra is better than the Focus, but it's just bland. And Chevy has came out with the Cruze, which is much better than that Cobalt was. That thing was terrible. Anyway, I'm rambling. The Hyundai Elantra base trim gets a 3.5 out of 5. The drive is disappointing. It's sluggish, and the road feel was just pretty terrible. It didn't feel good to drive this base model. I don't know if the premium trim rides a little better. Give it a test drive. I mean, it's still a very attractive looking car. It's still one of the best looking cars in this segment. It's just lacking in features in the base trim. Even the base trim Corolla had more features than this Elantra now. So expect a refresh from Hyundai. They usually refresh their cars pretty quick. And Hyundai is doing some major things. They're one of the better auto brands out right now, believe it or not. Anyway, I'm rambling on. Once again, I'm the average car review guy. And I'll catch you on the next one.